Mike Sills. Damn. They caught a serial killer eating pizza. Man, you can't get away with anything. Now I'm going to have to make sure all my pizza crusts that if I eat my pizza now, man, I'm going to have to throw them and burn them because I don't want any DNA evidence in case, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't want anybody tying me into me eating pizza with me whacking people. I can't have it. And with me being Italian, you see, unlike Tone, you'll never be accused of being a killer. Okay, Tone? You'll never be accused. I will. I'm Italian. Okay? Tone will never be accused of being a killer. By the way, it's probably the only thing I haven't been accused of. But Italians get accused. Okay? Italians get accused. Damn, they caught the dude eating pizza. Unbelievable, man. Hush, you can't get away with anything nowadays. Crazy. All right. It is Friday. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you coming aboard with us. 11 days to the start of training camp and also 11 days to my daughter's birthday. She's out running in the heat right now. God bless her. I saw her before she left. She's like, here I go. And I said, hey, this is what champions do. Jalen Hurts is out running right now, getting ready for camp. He's got 11 days. You think he's sitting back? You think he's sitting back just waiting for the – no way, man. That guy's working probably even harder than he'll work. Hey, how about this? Would we not agree on Hurts? Jalen Hurts probably will have worked out harder in the offseason on his time, more so than he'll work in training camp. I don't really do much in training camp anymore. Hurts probably worked harder. He put all his work in. Now he's just going to go, and he's going to be with his team getting ready for the upcoming 2023 season. He's already put his work in. Okay? So it's cool, man. I mean, I can't wait to see what this thing looks like. I was watching Tone on with Rob earlier, and Rob made a comment about the opening game against New England and how tough Rob thinks that game is. I think you do too, Tone. Think that game's going to be more of a challenge. Let me ask you something. And I heard difference of opinions, and I saw you guys posting. Do you guys think that the new coordinators are going to be a big factor, a nothing burger, or maybe something? What do you think the changing of coordinators will mean to the Eagles in 2023? What nothing burger, something, or nothing? Or maybe all of the above. I don't know. How do you look at it? Good afternoon to you too, Sue. What do you guys think? Changing in coaching. They're not changing the playbook. Nobody's suggesting that they're changing the playbook. JM goes going to be hiccups. Senior football, obviously a factor. Sean Desai salad. Okay. Greg goes big factor. I think I heard Tone say they're going to be okay on offense. Okay. Mateo says big factor. Okay. Well, let me make a little bit of let me put a statement out there on that. Now, and I'll tell you what I think. Will the change in coordinators be a factor for the Eagles in 2023? Okay. Do you agree in Buffalo they ran the same playbook that they ran when Brian Daboll was there with Ken Dorsey? Do you think the Bills had a change? Not in philosophy, but do you think the offense looked different? Did the offense look? They didn't change the playbook. It was the same playbook. What changed? What changed? They didn't add, subtract. What changed? Did the Bills look? And by the way, we're going to look at the Bills today because that's your Week 12 opponent. Okay? On defense more? I don't know. 2-1-5. I don't know, man. I thought they looked a little different, especially in the second half offensively. Well, let me bring it home in Philly then. Was there a change in Carson Wentz when you went from Frank Reich to Doug's play calling? Was there a change? They didn't change the playbook. Same guy. They didn't change the playbook at all. Was there a change in Carson Wentz? Yes? No? Did you see a change in how he played? When Carson Wentz got a new coordinator after Frank got the job in Indy? No plays were changed. Same playbook, a different voice, though. Okay? So, Quan, you don't think that there was a change in the way Carson played with Doug calling plays versus Frank? Or to more of a point, you don't really think that Josh Allen had a different year this year? Hey, they won a ton of games up there in Buffalo this year. Of course there's going to be a difference. That's why that opening game against Belichick is going to be closer than what you think. Bill is going to get that into the fourth quarter, and he's going to totally attack your weakness. Bill doesn't attack football teams. And I've told some of you this before. Some of you don't really know how Belichick attacks teams. That's why he has different personnel groupings each week. Bill doesn't go after one particular strength that he does. He goes after your weakness. He goes after that team's weakness and players who are not sure of yet what they're being asked to do. You know how I know this? I've talked to him about it. I said, Bill, each and every single week, do you go after teams with the strengths that you have? He goes, why would I do that? Because sometimes my strength runs into their strength, and all we're doing is playing into that team, especially if they got better personnel than us. We don't go after particular people. We go after the weakest link on teams. And the weakest link is going to be this. You don't have skilled running backs that are able to be counted on. So they're going to try to stop the run. They're going to try to turn Hurts into one-dimensional, which will be a problem. And they got the corners to play. They're still 5'10", and under the kid Gonzalez they got from Oregon, I'm expecting to play. They've got two pass rushers that can get home. And on the other side of the ball, they're a big unit in the O-line, and they got a 1,000-yard rusher who was almost at 5 yards a carry. They're going to run the ball on you. And what they're going to try to do, here's how New England keeps that first game close. Okay? Here's how they keep that first game close. Don't turn the ball over. Don't give the Eagles long drives. Because in my opinion, if the Eagles get out on them and they get out to a 14-point lead, I don't believe that New England can come back in that game. I don't think they have comeback capability. They've got to stay within, in my opinion, between 3 and 7 points at half, and they got to get that bad puppy into the fourth quarter to make that thing interesting. Because if Philly scores on them immediately, I think that thing's over. The problem will be, once again, Philadelphia doesn't have a red zone offense. And the red zone offense is the quarterback. It's not really a red zone offense. You didn't have one last year, really. And that's why you weren't able to close many games out. That's why people kept complaining. How come they can't just run the clock out? And how come they can't just put teams away? You were so dominant, and you were, but the one thing they couldn't do was sometimes you looked up in games, it was 2 minutes left, teams are still 10 points near you. That's going to be a factor this year because you're going to have to put teams away. You're going to have to put teams, I think, to sleep early. Alexander goes, the Patriots aren't scoring anything. They don't have to. They just have to limit you. Okay? They don't have to score a shitload of points. You're right. If New England doesn't get 25 points, they're not going to be in that game. So they've got to keep, in week 1, they've got to keep the Eagles under 25 points. That could happen. It's week 1. You don't know. I don't know. But you have superior coaching. Coaching matters in the NFL. Your coordinators, once again, are the most inexperienced people in the league as a group. Nobody made changes like the Eagles did at coordinator, where you lost both of them. No one. Unless you were a bad team. Not one good team from a year ago had change in both coordinators. Okay? Not one. KC lost one because he kind of got a promotion in Washington. You basically see sometimes only one leaving. You don't see both leaving. And again, on offense, it's not going to be that much more of a factor, I don't think. Now, again, what are they going to bring? We're going to talk about that more here in a second here. But that's why that game is going to be interesting. That game's going to be interesting in New England because of coaching. The one glaring flaw that you had in the Super Bowl that was exposed was your coaching wasn't up to snuff next to Andy and Spagnuolo. We talked about that yesterday. You were outcoached. Completely outcoached. They had, and Merrill Reese went on WIP, and he said, to this day, I will always say that the Eagles had the better team. They did. What was the difference? The giant gap in that game was coaching. That's what it was. And the giant gap. Hey, how about this? You're going to have the personnel advantage in New England. You're not going to have the coaching advantage. You're not. You will not have the coaching advantage. What undrafted free agent could make an impact this year? 85, we'll look at that a little bit later, okay? Okay? Well, Quan, you're not going to have the coaching advantage in New England. You're not. You're not going to have. You are not going to go into one game this year where you're going to have the coaching advantage. Maybe Jets. You're not going to have the coaching. The reason you lost to Washington by 10 was coaching. Don't you understand? Washington is superior to Philly. They didn't have the personnel to beat you, and you were healthy in game 2. And you got beat. And you got beat. There was, of all the games that Philly played last year, I get the Kansas City Super Bowl. I get that. There's no excuse losing to Washington. You have no excuse losing to Washington. And you know what's funny? I didn't realize Washington was 8-1. I did not realize that a year ago. Okay? You get this. So a guy like Quan thinks that Brian Johnson and Sean Desai are better coaches than Bill Belichick, Bill O'Brien, and Belichick as the D coordinator. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that. Because that's not an argument. That's a dumb comment. But that's okay. It's a passionate comment. It's an absolute delusional thought if you think that. Okay? Anyway, we're going to look at the quarterback room for the Eagles today. And we're going to look at Buffalo. Let's start with the Bills. What do people look at the Bills this year? Give me a brief synopsis on how you see Buffalo. That's going to be your Week 12 opponent. How do you see the Bills when it comes to the landscape of the NFL and as a contender? What do you see with that football team under Sean McDermott, who, by the way, cut his chops in Philly? I believe he was on the Jim Johnson team, and he was on the Jim Johnson coaching staff. How do you look at Buffalo? What do you look when you see the Buffalo Bills? A team that could play for the Super Bowl this year? Bills choke like the Dallas Cowboys. I wouldn't say choke. Okay? I wouldn't say choke. I see the Bills team that lost to the Jets and Dolphins. You see 85, that's a poor comment. Here's why. So are you talking about the same team that lost to the Washington Commanders and lost to the Cowboys? I mean, you guys lost to the Commanders. The Jets weren't bad last year. Pretty good defensive unit. Okay? Tell me. So you guys, what? You think the Bills are tripping up? Let's take a look at Buffalo here. A lot of noise. A lot of noise in Buffalo this year. A lot of noise. Got a lot of talent on that team, and their defense in the last 4 years has been one of the better units. It's not a shocker with McDermott being the head football coach. It's not a shock. But there's been a lot of noise in Buffalo this year, and the quarterback has to fix that. That is up to the quarterback to right that room and get that room back in shape as you get ready for the start of the season. It's the Eagles' Week 12 opponent. Buffalo has been, in my opinion, a contender for the AFC for the past 4 years. In that 4 years, they've won 47 ball games. It's a lot of wins over 4 years. 47 games they've won over the last 4 years, and they've been a contender all 4 of those years, in my opinion. And it's been because of Josh Allen being put up there. They upgraded the interior of their offensive line, which they needed to. They added some pieces on defense. McDermott's a heck of a coordinator on defense. It's Dorsey. And by the way, I didn't realize that Joe Barry, the quarterback coach, is up there also in Buffalo. So you got Dorsey and Joe Barry working with Josh Allen. That's some pretty good people. Dorsey, again, is taking a lot of heat because it didn't look a lot like what Brian Daboll did. But to me, I think those are some pretty good coaches. And yes, I do agree also. The running back game, but see, it just shows you one more time here. Now, Jalen's going to find that out too because you don't have a running back either. And you don't have a legitimate running back. You've got a collection of running backs. And you got a back that we'll see who could be maybe. And once again, on July 14th, could be maybe. Think about it. You got a guy that the Lions wanted to move off of. And that's why they drafted the kid out of Alabama in the first round. You got a spare part from another team. And you know this, I like Swift. But that's how the Lions looked at him. Now, had the Lions been smart on personnel moves, dude, they thought Darius Slay sucked. And he's been a fabulous Philadelphia Eagle and NFL player since he's been at the NovaCare Center. So I'm more apt to believe that Philly knows what they're doing with a player more so than what Detroit does. So that's how Detroit sees him. I don't see that. I don't see that in Swift. I see a guy who's hurt, talented, needs to play, and could be a better player with a better O-line. Okay? I see him different than Detroit. Detroit's moved off players, and they've actually gone places and succeeded. So for me to sit here and go like this, well, hey, that's spare parts from the – that's how they see him. Okay? They see that. I don't. Just to be fair here. Okay? McDermott and John Butler are on the defensive side, the pretty good play callers. I know John Butler. Bills won 13 football games a year ago, and that's with the cancellation of that Bengal game because of the Damar Hamlin scenario. So they want to get this. They played in the AFC, didn't have the greatest year, still won 13 ball games, and went 13-3. That's remarkable. In the AFC, if the Bills were in the NFC, they'd be undefeated. Okay? You looked at the Bills and you went, I don't know. And then you turn around and go, they won 13 games. It's pretty impressive. They're an impressive football team. And by the way, the 3 losses were by a total of 8 points. A football team was 8 points away from being unbeaten. I mean, we're not talking about a football team that got killed. We're talking about a football team that made glaring mistakes and key losses. Vikings loss was a key loss. What I'm telling you is, here's a team that didn't play up to their expectations, nor do I think their ability, and they still won 13 games in the better conference. It's pretty good. Okay? You don't play your best game, and you still win a ton of games. The Bills are good. Bills are good. The Bills have a first-place schedule, obviously, because they won the East. This is not going to be an easy run for them again, but it's not been that way for 4 years with those 47 wins. Allen is this to me. Josh Allen is an absolute elite talent. He's just not an elite quarterback yet. He is an elite talent. Gigantic arm. Plays 17 games. Puts up gargantuan numbers. Has to learn the game a little better and seeing the game. Dude, get down. Just get down. If you don't get first down, so what? Punt. If you lose the game, so what? Last year, you made critical mistakes in critical moments in games, and there's a little Wentz in that. You can't have that. I would rather have you throw for 5 less touchdown passes. Okay? 5 less touchdown passes than to have some of those turnovers. Okay? He's got to be smarter in how he sees it. Allen is an elite talent. Spectacular talent. One of the absolute best talents that have come out of college in a long time. And he's playing to it. But again, in critical moments, especially in the second half, especially when he lost his security blanket and Brian Dable, got to be better, son. Got to be better. They've got a good formula up there, and they're winning with it. The AFC East is good, and it continues to improve now that you've added Aaron Rodgers to it. So my overall takeaway, Buffalo once again will be a formidable team, will be a 12-13 win football team in the toughest conference, the AFC, with all those great quarterbacks in it. They're still going to win 12-13 games. It's a good group. They've got to get more out of the running game, in my opinion, and Allen has got to protect himself better in those games. Don't put the ball on the ground in Minnesota with the goalpost in your back. That could cost you home field advantage. That was one of the worst plays of the year a year ago. One of the absolute worst plays of the year because it could have cost you home field, and I think it cost you home field advantage. Okay? So all in all, Buffalo's going to be quite a team to play for the Eagles in Week 12. And you're going to go through a stretch of ball games where you're – and again, Sean Desai versus Josh Allen, I'll take that all night. I'll take that all night. Who on your football team do you think is going to be able to bring – what linebacker is going to cover Josh Allen? What linebacker? Who? Nakobe Dean? He needs a stepladder. Show me one guy when he gets out in the open that can cover him. Your corners will run him over. He's 6'6". Who in your secondary? Now, the kid Brown, maybe. You have nothing back there to stop this guy. It's going to be interesting, especially if you have a soft zone like you've had for 2 years, to see how you're going to stop him. You're going to have to get home. Now, you can get home. They got a pretty good offensive line. Buffalo's improving in that position. Like I said, they improved in the interior. But Kwan goes like this. Allen could be on IR. Your guy has been on IR. 2 years in a row, he hasn't. Again, wishful thinking. Jeffy goes, he needs to stay healthy. He was last year. Played all 17 games. What are you talking about, health? Health's not a factor with Allen. It's not a factor. It's not a factor with Josh Allen. You're missing that. That's not a true comment. What you're trying to do is make sure he doesn't have issues as he gets older. Again, he's an elite talent. Okay. So Buffalo's going to be a really great test on the schedule. Joe says that Buffalo needs a game breaker. So you don't think Diggs is a game breaker. 100-some-odd catches. Had a big year. The other guy on the other side's not that bad. Look at his yards per catch. They probably do need another game breaker up there. They probably do. Okay? But again, Kansas City doesn't have a game breaker except for the tight end. And that's a big except. I get it. But there's nothing special. Outside of Kelsey, there's nothing special in Kansas City. And so at the end of the day, Buffalo has Diggs. Kansas City has Kelsey. And they're still great teams that win a lot of games. The Eagles could never win 12, 13 games without Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, and just with Dallas Goedert. There's not a chance. Do you understand that? You're not winning 12 games like those quarterbacks are. You're not. That's not happening. They don't have running backs. They have one playmaker. All those guys have one playmaker, and they still win 13, 14 games. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. Okay? The guy in Kansas City has nothing except the tight end. And again, it's a lot. And the play caller. Okay?